Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where everyone's saying Kevin Feige has lost his creative touch. But he still seems to have the Midas touch, and that's really the only touch that Hollywood cares about. That's right, 2022 is halfway done, and Marvel has 2 of the top 3 opening weekends for the year. I mean, if you're just wondering about Disney's priorities, Bob Chapek is, making a lot of money for the company, even though he's upsetting fans, and his contract just got renewed. So, whoever makes the gold keeps their job. I don't know. We'll talk about, how many times is this going to happen in Hollywood, because eventually your luck runs out, but you could make a lot of money until it does. Anyway, yes, 2 of the top 3 opening weekends for the year belong to Marvel. With Thor Love and Thunder, their 12th biggest opening ever. Pretty good for a movie that most people don't like. And it's about I liked it, but I admit that it has a lot of problems. And about a $20 million improvement on Thor Ragnarok, so it's headed in the right direction. And once again, we ask ourselves, well, what will the second weekend drop look like? But does it even matter? Doctor Strange 2 fell 67% in its second weekend. Oh my God, but it still made almost $1 billion. Thor Love and Thunder has opened almost everywhere. And like most Disney movies these days, that does not include China. And it will not include China. But the last Thor made a decent amount of money there. It made $112 million. Thor Love and Thunder, to me, plays a lot like Jurassic World Dominion. It's fun for fans who want to have fun, but it's definitely a step down for the franchise. Jurassic World Dominion has done high 800s so far, with 144 from, you guessed it, China, where Uni secured the rare Hollywood Middle Kingdom release date these days. I'm not seeing nearly the same online interest for Thor Love and Thunder that we did for Doctor Strange 2. Thank you, Wanda. Yet there's no real competition coming up at the multiplex either. There's Nope and DC Super Pets at the end of the month, but I don't think Thor Love and Thunder will have any real competition until it hits the brick wall of content that is August 5th. Why is it all on August 5th? Spread that stuff out. So I still think Thor Love and Thunder is headed for the same ballpark as Thor Ragnarok and Jurassic World Dominion, only without China, which I think means it will end its worldwide run with a 7 in front of it. We'll see. Would Disney Marvel be happy with that? Kevin Feige's dance card is so full these days, I'm not sure. He has so many movies waiting for a release date. Is he going to keep pushing the ones that are not performing at the same level as other movies? Well, with the exception of the pandemic, MCU movies haven't grossed in the 800 million range since 2017, with the exception, of course, of Ant-Man and the Wasp. But yet that's getting a sequel. Even when Marvel movies don't do well, they move forward. It's a family affair, kind of Fantastic Four light, and ironically, probably where the Fantastic Four will be introduced. It's like, I think Kevin Feige views these movies as building blocks, but I don't know, the weaker the building block, it's like Jenga. Is this whole thing going to come tumbling down? But when is that going to happen? I mean, we just sitting here being like, it looks super unstable, yet look at it soar. My feeling is that Taika Waititi did a good job with job security, and he set up so much for Thor 5 that he can't not do it. Maybe they'll just be like, have a script maybe this time before you start? Maybe, kind of, please. This is a very good opening weekend. There is interest in the character. So I think, let him finish his trilogy. And what about his Star Wars movie? Just how far do you let these things go? So MCU Phase 4, though, definitely has some problems. So let's talk about what they could potentially be. And I'm excited to hear your own thoughts, and I know you have them, down below. Even you diehard Marvelites have to admit there are cracks in what's going on here. For sure, I think one is trying to cram artistic directors into factory filmmaking. Chloe Zhao, Sam Raimi, and now Taika Waititi. But Ragnarok worked, so that's interesting. But speaking of Ant-Man, Peyton Reed is as bland and malleable as they come, and yet his movies aren't any better. They're in fact worse. I'd rather there be at least something for us to, and there's just nothing to discuss with the Ant-Man movies. I think the Russo brothers were truly a gift to the MCU. Come back! They're not really doing anything anyway. As they're also fans, and they understood the assignment, right? I think that if you want to make blockbuster movies, you have to have some business sensibility, because you have to deliver. Ryan Coogler, who knocked it out of the park with Black Panther, hopefully he can save MCU Phase 4 later this year with his sequel. Although, of course, he doesn't have Chadwick Boseman after his tragic passing, and Ryan Coogler was forced to make a decision because he had to go into production after Chadwick Boseman's death, which nobody knew about. And so they couldn't make any plans for it. So he has a T'Challa-less sequel. And Ryan Coogler had to make a choice not to recast. I still think that wouldn't work. Well, I mean, it's been done with secondary or third-tier characters, but a lead? I don't know if it could be done. And everybody was saying at that moment, don't recast. But now everybody wants recast. So that movie is, let's just see. Let's see. They're obviously going to be promoting it big time at San Diego, and we'll see what the reaction is at Comic-Con. Another problem is that it's simply mimicking the all-new, all-different Marvel Comics initiative creatively, and now in terms of fan response. Oh my God! The comic book stories that were not popular as comics are now not popular as movies and TV shows. Who'd have guessed it? It's like, why would you follow that map into unsuccess? It's worth noting that a lot of those comics failed not because of representation. I find that very frustrating when people say that. The problem was they were uninspired, check-a-box storytelling 9 times out of 10. Or they were written by people who, again, just don't get the blockbuster genre. They don't understand what needs to be delivered for something to succeed. And you're seeing those exact same problems in the movies and TV shows based on that, in the types of stories or who's writing them. I mean, Ms. Marvel started out very strong, and it has a lot going for it. But in terms of momentum, well, Sloth Baby Productions turned out to be prophetic. You know the word I'm talking about. But yeah, the thing's moving at the pace of a sloth right now. I also think the MCU might be approaching oversaturation with the addition of a lot of Disney Plus shows. As I said in my recent coverage, I believe in my Thor first reaction, you see the MCU logo so much these days, it's no longer special. You're like, I'll see that every week. And you're getting B and B plus cinema scores. But so far, despite there being maybe too much, only Ms. Marvel and Eternals have really faltered reviewership and box office. So this is a new test for Kevin Feige, right? Will he be like every other studio executive and ignore all the warning signs as long as he's making money until he isn't? Or try to fix this so he doesn't have to reset his movies with a creative break like, DC, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. It's happened to all three. Will it happen to Marvel next? Everybody thought Marvel was too big to fail. And so far, that's exactly what it's proving to be. But I just don't, we'll see. Marvel plans so far in advance, I think they might be stuck on this path as well. So that's, the inability to pivot is also very interesting. Also interesting, older women that saw Thor Love and Thunder liked it the most, perhaps because of Natalie Portman. Also, I wager that for everybody who liked Natalie Portman in this movie, you didn't read the comics, and so maybe that's why you're okay with her performance. But if you read the comics, you would see that it's not nearly on par in terms of the mighty Thor, what that character could be and should be. But anyway, it was men who overwhelmingly showed up. So the older women who did show up liked what they saw, but not a lot of them came. The diversity demo spread, though, was excellent. Very nice, broad appeal. So we'll see what the second weekend looks like and where Thor Love and Thunder finishes its worldwide run before hitting Disney Plus and digital mid-August with the 45-day window. And on that note, I also feel that Disney Plus is a difficult balancing act for the mouse, especially with their big franchises. How does a 2-hour movie compete with a 6-hour movie? I believe Kevin Feige thinks the answer is spectacle, which might have been why Doctor Strange 2 did so well. Wanda, let's loose. And Thor Love and Thunder, by the way, I think is very light on spectacle, so that could be why it maybe isn't as successful in the long run as Doctor Strange 2. We'll see, though. But still, none of these Phase 4 movies, which is when the Disney Plus shows started, have enough spectacle to make up for how poorly their story is being done, right? I mean, they would have to be like Endgame level spectacle, although Endgame also, I think, had a very good story. Kevin Feige and all studios with streaming services are going to have to figure out what will set their franchise movies apart from their franchise streaming shows if they're going to have these franchises do double duty. Perhaps the answer lies in what makes an Avengers movie, right? It might be that all standalone character stories belong on Disney Plus at this point, and it's only the Avengers-level events that belong on the big screen. Is that term the answer staring us right in the face? Is it an Avengers-level event? If not, send it to Disney Plus. I do think they have perhaps too much Disney Plus content. But the streaming services are so lucrative, they're extremely important. And Doctor Strange 2 also still almost made $1 billion. All right, as for it's so frustrating. It's tough. I mean, it's hard to mess with something when it's generating so much money. So I understand their problem. But it sucks for us having to sit through it. As for the rest of the top 10, Minions 2 had the exact same second weekend drop as the first Minions, which eventually, as you know, went to $1 billion. And this Minions is already at $405 million worldwide in just 2 weeks. I did get to see it over the past week, and I thought it was surprisingly good. Very strong story, I felt, considering how the first Minions was a little weak on story. Although the Vicious Six had surprisingly little screen time, and such big names voicing them. Top Gun Maverick is still going strong, but finally suffered a real drop thanks to Thor Love Thunder entering the marketplace. Again, the question here is when will Paramount send it to digital/Paramount Plus? For Labor Day weekend, or see if the movie can play all summer long? It's not going to be able to get the premium screens for Labor Day weekend because of that Spider-Man No Way Home re-release with additional content. So maybe it should go for digital that weekend and Paramount Plus. So that's maybe the play I would consider. Since I couldn't get those premium screens for one last hurrah. Elvis is on track to cross the century mark during its theatrical run, but just barely. And it's a far cry from the uber success of Bohemian Rhapsody. No one has been able to duplicate that. No other, music bio movie. Madonna's like, let me try, we'll see. Julia Garner, she hasn't signed her contract yet, but she is a double Emmy nominee. Here's hoping Elvis becomes a stronger play on HBO Max, and the 45-day window means it will be hitting that service in early August. Are you waiting till then, or are you just not going to watch it? And I don't see Lightyear even matching The Good Dinosaur's domestic haul, which makes it the lowest movie from Pixar to date, domestic and worldwide, outside of Onward's pandemic performance. Oh my God! Yikes! Let's see what kind of soul-searching Pixar does as a result, including what they decide to do to try and resuscitate the Toy Story brand after such a devastating blow. I know a number of you will say that it's solely because of the LGBT. It's such a small, short moment, really. I think that was blown way out of proportion. But I think there's so many other elements with Lightyear, like that it's totally off-brand for Buzz. It doesn't have Tim Allen. Even Tom Hanks said that was stupid. And if Tom Hanks speaks up about something, it must really be bad. Although he did wait to see where the court of public opinion went. He didn't speak out before the movie bombed. But anyway, I think that there's too many other problems with the movie, and you're not going to have a good idea about whether or not there's LGBT content is having trouble. I mean, it's doing very well on streaming. Look at Heartstopper. But if it has a problem in family movies until Strange World comes out for Thanksgiving later this year, that's going to be the real test after Fantastic Beasts 3 and Lightyear. But the bottom of the top 10, it's so low, it's ridiculous. Like, yikes, those movies that gross that little should not be in the top 10. And it shows that the pandemic, and I believe streaming, which the pandemic, made even stronger, but if obviously streaming is here to stay, it's still having a huge effect on the box office. And it's the spectacle that really does well. Even something like Everything Everywhere All at Once is a spectacle indie film. On that note, let's head over to streaming, starting with Nielsen as usual for the second week. Well, not always as usual. They missed that one crucial week, but they're back on track for the second week of June. Stranger Things, naturally, is still dominating, but look at The Boys. That's the big story of today. Already at number 2 in just the second week of season 3. That is very exciting. Not just for fans of the show. Count me one of them. I think it's a great show, even though I think and imagine what's going to happen to its ratings when it gets to the end of the season, where it really got fantastic. But this is very good for people who want to see, Disney and, Marvel and Star Wars and, DC, although DC doesn't have any shows, don't want to break up that, that stranglehold on viewership. Somebody else is able to compete. Remember, The Boys season 2 came out before Disney Plus even existed. And so the fact that The Boys is way higher than Obi-Wan is now or ever has gotten is just really fantastic. This shows that it can compete. The Boys season 4 has already been greenlit. We have spin-offs coming, although Diabolical never really registered, although these other spin-offs will be live action. And let's see if it starts to get the cast any other gigs. I mean, Anthony Starr should be a much bigger star. Also, brilliant choice for them to go week to week. And it was painful. It was a very difficult transition to break people of having, for the first season, you were able to binge it. But it's worked out wonderfully for them. And I would say Netflix should follow suit, but then look how Stranger Things is dominating. But, maybe, and so is Umbrella Academy when you see us get to the Netflix charts in just a moment. So I'm not quite sure what Netflix should do, but that was the right move for The Boys. As for Obi-Wan, with its 4th episode, it's sinking in the top 10 as it goes along. Pretty embarrassing for what was supposed to be such an iconic show. Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, and Anakin Skywalker unable to compete? I mean, if that just isn't the Disney Star Wars era in a nutshell, I don't know what is. That's tragic. But at least it's not as embarrassing as what's going on with Ms. Marvel. Look at its debut. Sure, it only has 1 episode versus multiple seasons for the other shows, or multiple episodes, but other Disney Plus, Marvel, and Star Wars shows have debuted much higher with just 1 episode, top 5. So let's just hope Ms. Marvel can stay in the top 10, much less get any higher. That is shocking how low it is. Shocking! Shocking, shocking. Highest rated, least watched. Over in movies, Netflix continues to keep Disney Plus at bay with a mix of new original movies and old studio favorites. The real bargain bin, but hey, it's included with your subscription fee. They just want to keep you from churning. As Encanto and Turning Red lose steam, and Chip and Dale is already out of the top 10. Although their sole Emmy nomination, I believe, or like pretty much their only major one, as Disney was otherwise completely shut out. That's tough. All right, and I think Loki should have gotten something, man. And Fantastic Beasts 3 had no staying power on HBO Max, dropping to the middle of the pack with very low numbers, but at least it's still on this list, as HBO Max still hasn't been able to break into the original shows. As for Netflix's own charts, for just last week, Kevin Hart continues to deliver for Netflix with The Man from Toronto #1 for the 2nd week in a row, making him, Sandler, and Hemsworth clear Netflix stars. I would say I don't know if Hemsworth wants to be in that group, but hey, money is money. And Netflix gave his wife a movie too, which did quite well, although that has already fallen out of the top 10. But for a while there, it was doing great. As for shows, Stranger Things 4 Part 2 propelled the show back into an incredibly strong #1 position. Yikes! That's so incredible. What a juggernaut. But Umbrella Academy Season 3 held up nicely against the ridiculously strong competition, with all 3 seasons in the top 10, as well as the 4 seasons of Stranger Things, which leaves just 3 spots for other shows. Basically, right now on Netflix, it's all Stranger Things and the Umbrella Academy, which makes me think we will get an Umbrella Academy Season 4. But anyway, the 3 other spots went to Man vs. Bee, which actually went up. Rowan Atkinson still got it. While Peaky Blinders' final season and reality show Snowflake Mountain finish out the top 10. Finally on iTunes, because it's Tuesday, sorry, Movie Math was a little late this week, the Bob's Burgers movie just debuted on digital at #10, the latest theatrical movie to trickle down to the new audience that's happy to wait for these movies to go on digital 30 to 45 days later. Maybe that's hurting the box office as well, as there is definitely a large contingent that has just decided they will wait for new movies. As you can see, it continues to be all recent releases in the top 10. And a couple of really crap movies from stars like Liam Neeson and Gerard Butler, who are more than happy to take your money to make money. Unfortunately, my family wanted to watch Memory because they wanted to see something that nobody had seen, and so I got outvoted and we watched Memory, and it was just awful. Liam Neeson, Martin Campbell. I felt maybe it would be okay because of Martin Campbell, who directed like The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. That was actually a surprisingly good movie, but this one, everyone associated with it should be ashamed. I'm ashamed. I even watched like the first 20 minutes of it. All right, as for this coming week, Thor Love and Thunder will have to slog through an onslaught of, really? They're releasing this in theaters? Movies. What crap. Although, pardon me if you're excited to see any of this. Paws of Fury, Where the Crawdads Sing, where the biggest names are not on camera, produced by Reese Witherspoon, original song by Taylor Swift, but they're not in the movie. Critical darling Marcel the Shell with Shoes On goes wide. It did make the top 10 this week, but don't applaud that. It had like 300 grand. That's nuts. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Why is that in theaters? And then, of course, The Gray Man in select theaters, which does go to streaming just 1 week after. Are you going to see The Gray Man in theaters? Are you going to pay to see The Gray Man in theaters? It's the Russo brothers. But, in just 1 week, you'll be able to stream it at no extra cost. I think that Netflix, and they're toying with this idea, needs to go to the 30 to 45-day window. But then they're just another movie studio, which is hilarious. On streaming, What We Do in the Shadows returns today on FX with 2 episodes. I believe that means they'll be on Hulu tomorrow. Also tomorrow, Solar Opposites Season 3 debuts on Hulu. Thursday, Resident Evil lives again! This time as a new series on Netflix, not debuting on Friday. That means it must not be great. More F-Boy Island on HBO Max. Hey, whatever it takes to get into the top 10 on Nielsen original shows. And if this doesn't do it, well then yes, that's embarrassing. F-Boy Island. As I've said, way to keep it classy, HBO Max. Julia is like, I can't believe I'm next to this in the search. Although I doubt that's the same audience. While Hulu gets into salacious documentaries that have done very well for Netflix, obviously, with Victoria's Secret, Angels and Demons. Hulu had the very strong Real Housewives documentary about Erica Jane and her husband, Tom Girardi. Big legal thing. That did very well for Hulu. And then also I have to say the Victoria's Secret real life stories, pretty interesting. So you might want to check that out. Then on Friday, Dakota Johnson stars in Netflix's Movie of the Week, Persuasion. Netflix also has another adult animated series, Farzar. Well, HBO, not HBO, but it'll be on both, but HBO, the channel, the cable channel, debuts The Rehearsal, where Canadian comedian Nathan Fielder helps real people rehearse major life moments. Could be interesting. Seems to have pretty good reviews. So that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And do you think the MCU is in trouble, or it's all gravy, baby? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.